you may have noticed, we are in a place that represents one of the culminations, perhaps the culmination of our civilization. The early Muslims represented a culmination of inward wisdom, but the civilizational story of Islam, whereby the connection of knowledge to wisdom was made refined and palatable and successful, is something that evolved and is called upon to continue to evolve. The Arabs had their day and handed the torch of civilization to the Persian peoples, who then handed their torch of civilization after the Mongol invasions to the Mughals in the east and to the Central Asians to the north and to the Ottomans in the eastern Mediterranean and in North Africa. So what we're seeing here is a kind of culmination, that in Istanbul to this day you find the most sophisticated Islamic arts and calligraphy and illumination and tajweed and singing, and this still, despite the blanket or the pillow that has been put over their face for the last 80 years to try and suffocate the living breath of Islam out of the Turkish people, it continues to be here. If you want the reality of our civilization, come here. Don't go to the Middle East any longer, come here, still, despite everything. And it is in a place like this that we realize this cumulative value of our civilization, that sometimes we find it hard to grasp, because we think, خير القرون قرني ثم الذين يلونهم ثم الذين يلونهم, and it's in a hadith, many hadiths in fact, that indicate that the best of generations is my generation, then that which follows, then that which follows. There is spiritually a kind of entropy, a running down of the batteries after the initial explosion of prophetic light, and that's to be expected. Energy runs downhill. But civilization is something more complicated. And necessarily the success of Islam is to be measured in the ability of its upholders to transform outward knowledge into inward wisdom. And that's really what we mean when we say sacred civilization. Outward knowledge is relatively easy to come by. You just need a reasonably good memory. On a certain mechanical level, you could even say that the internet contains more knowledge than any human being has ever had, but it doesn't have any wisdom. So what is required is the transformation of what in Rumi's tradition is called danesh, knowledge, into khirad, wisdom. And this is what this particular institution has always represented. And those who are buried here and in the great cemeteries nearby are people who came here specifically to learn that alchemy. How can we take what we know outwardly and turn it into something that is part of our being inwardly in the most best possible way? How can we effect that transmutation, that deepening of our faith? And this is exampled in the life of Mawlana Jalaluddin Rumi, Hazratleri, in his own biography, in his life, because he used to say, first I was raw, then I was cooked, then I was burnt. What he means by this is that, first of all, he was just a scholar. People pointed to him in the streets of Konya and said, there goes the second Ghazali. He was amazing. He knew the disciplines of his day. He was the Khatib, the Friday Imam of the great mosque of Ala ad-Din in Konya, the greatest city of Muslim Anatolia in the 13th century, wearing the proud white robes of the scholar. But he was raw, and it was something inward that happened to him, different to Ghazali's own transmutation, but probably in its essence the same kind of alchemy was at work that turned him into Mevlana, the one who inspired this building and inspires millions today through the extraordinary effulgence, the unique power and luminescence of his verse. How did he manage to do that? One of the great Shaykh al-Islams of the Ottoman Empire, Ibn Kamal, early 16th century, who was the Shaykh al-Islam in the time of Yawuz Sultan Salim and accompanied him in his journey to free Syria, Palestine, Egypt from the Mamluks, had a dream. And he dreamt that he saw the Holy Prophet ﷺ, and he was holding in his hand a copy of the Mathnavi. And he was saying, this is how you turn what is outward into what is inward and is in a way that is pleasing to me. And Ibn Kamal, who was the Mufti of the empire and handled over 2,000 fatwas a day, and wrote his great tafsir and many works, several hundred works in fact. This is Ibn Kamal, known as Kamal Pashazadeh in the Turkish world. He was buried only a few hundred yards from here, rahmatullahi alayh. He could see this, that we need this way of taking all of the outward knowledge, and Ibn Kamal had more of it than just about anybody, and turning it into wisdom. Khirad, hikmat, how do we do that? That requires something that is to do with the ruh, the spirit, the inward tenderness, the humanity of us all. So there must be a tradition, there must be a set of institutions that help us to cross that bridge and to make that transformation.